Deutsche Bank sees the S&P hitting 1550 next year, well above even some of the more bullish forecasts from Wall Street. In a CNBC exclusive, U.S. equity strategist Binky Chadha joins us from New York this afternoon. Good to see you again. Happy holidays, Binky.
Hi, Sue.
You say that the strategic and tactical case for equities is basically that growth is cheap. You list 7 tactical issues that if they come together would result in the forecast that you have put out today. They include a variety of things, strengthening recovery, job growth, credit, and the like. Which of those 7 tactical issues do you think are the most important for this equation?
I think it is an asset reallocation back into equities. I think that investors have basically been underweight equities for quite some time, and at some point, and we are seeing early signs of that, there is going to be a reallocation back into equities, as normally happens in every cycle. It's a little bit late by, measured in terms of time relative to past cycles, but we think that it will happen, and it will probably take the Fed to make it happen. The Fed has to basically state that it's basically done trying to lower rates, and that has historically been the trigger.
Binky, let me ask you to probe a little bit on large cap versus small cap. For much of the past decade, the big multinational blue chips, whether it's General Electric or Microsoft or Intel or an awful lot of them, have really not performed at all. In fact, they're way below where they were a decade ago. Do you think this decade is going to be different, or that the next year or two will be different and favor the large blue chips?
Yes, we do think so. I think, what you want to keep in mind is, where exactly sort of we are in the cycle. As you say, the small caps have underperformed for a very long time, but you also got to keep in mind that over the last 2 or 3 years, basically, there's really been no new money coming into equities, and so it's the existing investor base that has basically gone in terms of and in search of basically beating the index, and that's a much more risk-tolerant investor base than the investor base is likely to be going forward. And I think you're going to see basically a reallocation back to higher quality and the large caps.
Binky, what is the biggest risk to your ambitious target of 1550?
We think there are several risks, but basically we think that the positive drivers will win out. Number one, I would put basically a disorderly correction in the U.S. bond markets. We've clearly seen some pretty big moves over the last few weeks, and many investors are asking about, it's starting to look like 1994.
How likely is a disorderly correction in the bond market in your mind, Binky?
I think basically that, from a fundamental point of view, there was, because of the expectations of QE2, clearly a big disconnect between where rates were and where the macro data and recovery were. Our estimates are basically that yields have now basically, reconnected with where the recovery is, and what we're seeing right now is really big positioning moves, and, in an environment of what looks like a relatively low liquidity. So yes, we do see rates basically going up, if we're right basically on our call on the economy and the recovery of the data surprises, but we should, we don't expect disorderly moves.
So the 10-year is at 3.25 now. Do you have a forecast for where it might be at its peak next year or year-end next year?
If the recovery plays out, then, 4 is where we were in April. We are a few months later, and if we're right basically on the recovery and jobs kicking in, we're going to go a lot higher than that over the course of next year.
Very quickly on commodity prices, Binky, because we've got to go. We have oil at 2-year highs in some of the contracts. Are you worried about commodity inflation?
Yes, we are, and we point that out basically in terms of the risks, key risks, but I would put it as number 3. I think the key issue really is going forward whether or not the dollar is going to go up and whether or not it's going to basically be able to offset the impacts basically of higher global growth going forward. Our baseline view is that it will.
Thank you, Binky. Appreciate it.